Game week is finally here, but who is Syracuse? Who returns? Who left? And is Tennessee truly a near 2-touchdown favorite like FanDuel says it is? That and so much more. It's your Tuesday Locked On Vols.
You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome into it. It's your Tuesday morning Locked On Vols. Appreciate you guys for being here, making the show your first listen, your first watch each and every single morning. We are a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every single day. Every dayers, your time to shine. Coming up in segment number 2, some mailbag questions here on game week. Taking a quick glance at Syracuse here in segment number 1 and looking at the ESPN matchup predictor in Tennessee. Favored to win 9 of its 12 games. Which games does ESPN say Tennessee will lose, and by what percentage? All that and more coming up here on today's Tuesday Locked On Vols. Hope you guys enjoyed the crossover with Locked On Syracuse yesterday, getting a little bit of a background information on Syracuse. We'll continue that conversation a little bit and kind of dive into the numbers a little bit. What is Syracuse bringing to the table? Who is back? Who is not? All that and more here coming up right now. And it's a game that Tennessee, according to FanDuel Sportsbook, is favored by 13.5 points. The over-under is at 50, that total. And I think, again, we'll do my official prediction. I know I did it on yesterday's crossover, but I always reserve the right to change it as the week goes on. I look at this game, and I think Tennessee's going to win pretty handedly. And that does not mean that I think Tennessee's going to be perfect. That does not mean that I think Tennessee's going to have all of its questions answered, because I don't think that's the case. I just don't think that Syracuse is very good, and maybe I'm overlooking the orange. I certainly think Fran Brown's a good coach. And much like Tennessee, Syracuse has so many questions on the offensive end, and I just think Tennessee's defense is going to be the easy equalizer, or not equalizer, just the difference in this game, honestly, where Syracuse has so many questions, it doesn't have a defense it can rely on, where Tennessee certainly has a defense that it can rely on. So I like Tennessee to win big in this one, covering that spread. We'll get to more on that here later in the week. And, of course, that's over at FanDuel Sportsbook, 13.5, nearly a 2-touchdown favorite at the time of this recording. So who is Syracuse? Well, Syracuse is coming off a 10-3 season. Won its bowl game, played spoiler at the end of last season, knocking off Miami and knocking Miami not only out of the ACC championship game, but in the college football playoff picture as well. Fran Brown, his second year. Josh Heupel, his fourth season. 37-15 is the record for Josh Heupel. And, lots at stake here. Tennessee, what will it look like offensively because of all the departures? Nico Iamaleava not here. Dylan Sampson, the SEC Player of the Year, not here. Offensive Player of the Year, not here. Losing 4 starters on the offensive line, losing all the experienced wide receivers pretty much. What does this offense look like? Can the defense be just as good as it was last year, or was it a flash in the pan, if you will? Tennessee also is historically, dominated under Josh Heupel teams from the ACC. Clemson, 2022 Orange Bowl. Pittsburgh, 2022 season. NC State last year. Virginia, 2023. I believe the only ACC team that Josh Heupel's lost to while at Tennessee was Pittsburgh in 2021. So, will this fall into the same pattern of these early season wins over the ACC, albeit not early season in the Orange Bowl against Clemson? We'll have to see. But for Clemson, it's how can you respond after losing, much like Tennessee, just so much on the offensive end? I mean, look at this offense and look at what Syracuse is losing from one year to the next. Kyle McCord, who broke ACC records, as we mentioned in the crossover yesterday. I mean, records that Deshaun Watson had held. And Deshaun Watson, obviously a fantastic college football player, was a pretty good NFL player as well before, his career kind of went sideways, injuries and all that and more. But you look at the Syracuse offense, Kyle McCord is no longer there. You lost your leading receiver in Trevor Pena, who, left at the end of spring. Lost your leading rusher in Leal and Quint. An NFL tight end, Aronde Gadsden, 3 starters on the offensive line. And much like Tennessee, you have a quarterback coming in that is a transfer, but also wasn't here in spring. You got him in the spring transfer portal window in Steve Angeli. Steve Angeli at Notre Dame saw action in 11 games as the backup last year. Saw a little bit of time in the college football playoff as well. Attempted 36 passes, completed 24 of them, 268, 3 touchdowns. And he beat out Ricky Collins, who transferred to Syracuse in December. So I think that says a lot that Angeli was able to beat out Ricky Collins who was already here for spring practice and all that. So Tennessee will square off against Steve Angeli. Syracuse has already named Steve Angeli quarterback one. Who's he going to have to throw to? And this might be, like Tennessee again, this might be one of my biggest questions. You had your top four options out. Your leading receiver that's coming back was the fifth option a season ago in Darrell Gill Jr., 3 touchdowns, 570 receiving yards. And not bad stats there, 31 receptions from your fifth option. To put that in perspective, Tennessee's leading receiver last year, I think, had 34 receptions, which is just incredible to me. But when you throw for over 5,000 yards, obviously the wide receivers were utilized pretty well. Umari Hatcher had 17 receptions a season ago. Justice Ross Simmons had 9 receptions a year ago. Man, they are really banking on Jonte Cook, who will be in the slot position, transfer from Texas, a former 5-star, to make it big with Syracuse. But in 2 years, only 16 catches for 273 yards. In the backfield, again, you lost a running back that rushed for over 1,000 yards last year, and you bring back sophomore Yasin Willis, who is 235, 240 pounds. He ran for 130 yards last year. Will Nixon, who transferred in from Washington, who started Washington in 2023, he was hurt and didn't play much for Syracuse last year. That tandem is expected to lead the backfield. And then you look at the offensive line, where at least 4 starters are going to be from the transfer portal, potentially all 5. You have Zach Rice from North Carolina, Austin Collins from Louisville, TJ Ferguson from Florida State, Cam Pringle from South Carolina. It looks like Cam Pringle might be locking down a starting job as well. One starter on the offensive line returns, potentially. He's in a battle. Demetrius Witherspoon, but he played right tackle. He might have to shift over and play left tackle this year. So it was an offense last year that really is what you could hang your hat on if you're Syracuse. Defensively, that was not the case, man. Syracuse had to outscore pretty much everybody. 14th in the ACC, giving up 29.15 points per game. Syracuse defending the run was not good. Allowed over 150 yards on average per game. Allowed over 5 yards per carry, 5.02 yards per carry. Those are not good numbers whatsoever. So, again, Syracuse had to kind of outscore everybody. And you have all these questions in week one because, like, what's the personnel look like? I mean, defensively, I don't think anybody really knows what that personnel is going to look like for Syracuse. You bring in David Reese, who this will be his 8th year of college football, which is just wild. Started his career at Florida. I think he was at Cal last year. I think he might have made a stop at Marshall. Maybe I'm making that up. But David Reese is coming in to help with the pass rush. He tallied 6.5 sacks the last 2 years. Chris Thomas and George Brooks, Boston College and Marshall. He might be the Marshall guy. Those guys have been brought in to have some depth at the interior tackle position. Derek McDonald returns at linebacker. He was 3rd on the team with 55 tackles. South Dakota transfer Gary Bryant III is also expected to be a starter there, 4-2-5 scheme. Got some talent in the secondary. Deuce Chestnut, 62 tackles. I believe that was 2nd on the team. 5 pass breakups. He's an experienced guy at safety, but you're going to need that experience because you are starting, as we mentioned in the crossover yesterday, one of the youngest players in all college football was expected to be a true freshman starter at cornerback and former 4-star Demetrius Samuel Jr. 17 years old, expected to start at one of those cornerback spots. Georgia transfer Chris Peels also brought in to provide some depth at cornerback as well. So, again, there's a lot of unknowns about the defense for Syracuse. So, because of all the question marks, because of all the unknowns offensively, having to replace so much productions, I've got faith on Tennessee to rely on that defense and go get a win pretty manageably. Fran Brown, he was at Georgia for 2 years, defensive backs coach, so he's defended against this Josh Heupel offense, but you can't replicate the tempo. How fast will Tennessee go? I don't know. Tennessee slowed things down last year, but no matter what, this is going to be the fastest offense that Syracuse has ever seen. And coming fresh out of fall camp, where you're practicing fundamentals, they're going to be going fast. And I think that is going to be another point in the direction of Tennessee that you can kind of not surprise because they know it's coming, but it's still going to be shocking to try to defend against that tempo the first couple of drives. So that's a little bit of a look at what Syracuse is, who Syracuse is, what they bring to the table. We'll continue to have some news and notes throughout the week. We'll dive into Syracuse in a little bit more on Friday, getting you set for Tennessee and Syracuse. But, man, on paper, I love Tennessee in this one. I do. I've liked Tennessee all offseason. Knowing Syracuse had a really good team last year, but knowing Syracuse is having to replace all that production, give me the Vols in this one as we look at it early in the week here on a Tuesday morning. Hey, when we come back, your mailbag questions, I'll do my best to answer those as we return right here on your Tuesday morning Locked On Vols. Stay tuned. August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans that live for the bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on the NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week one even begins, right? This is your moment. Long shot division winners. Yeah, I'm a Tennessee Titans fan. I'm probably not going to back the Tennessee Titans to win this division this year or to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl. But hey, maybe your team is the Kansas City Chiefs. Maybe your team is the San Francisco 49ers, right? You can do that. Get in on the action early on Futures Day and put in those futures, right? Visit FanDuel app today or go to FanDuelSportsbook.com, FanDuel.com, or visit the FanDuel app today. Start planning your future bets now because Futures Day, it's only one day and one day only. Again, that one day is August the 26th. Open the FanDuel app today or go to FanDuel.com. FanDuel is where you can play your game. Hey guys, an important request. Locked On wants to hear from you. We put together a survey to learn more about our listeners and make our favorite podcast even better. This is your chance to tell us what you like, what you don't like, and answer questions about our advertising. Go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey to get started. Everyone who completes the survey will be entered for a chance to win 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. Wow, that's not bad. Again, that's lockedonpodcast.com/survey. You can also find the link in the show notes. Thank you so much for helping us out. Back to your regular Tuesday morning scheduled programming. We'll get into some mailbag questions. Every dayers couldn't do the show without you. We will start from the bench. What will this fan base do if Joey Aguilar comes out Saturday and leads this offense to score 40-plus points in the season opener? Well, the first time Joey Aguilar airs it out, the first time Joey Aguilar makes a spectacular throw down the field, especially if it's early in the game, man, Tennessee fans are going to lose their minds, right? Because the down-the-field passing, the deep throws, 20 yards or more down the field, is something that this offense has not been accustomed to each of the past two seasons. So if that happens this year with Joey Aguilar, specifically on Saturday early in the game against Syracuse, these fans are going to go nuts, and that's awesome. But no, if you come out as transfer quarterback in your first game and you put up an effort of 40-plus points, yeah, there's going to be a whole lot of talk about, oh, man, that Georgia game's looming. We'll have 2 weeks to Tennessee-Georgia talk. Well, look what Tennessee did. Look what Joey Aguilar did against Syracuse to begin the season. ETSU, of course, is next week, but there's going to be 2 weeks of talk like, man, what can Tennessee do and how can Tennessee pull off that upset at home against Georgia? I'm excited for it because, again, the overreactions will be through the roof, good or bad, regardless for Tennessee's quarterback and really Tennessee's play overall. So I'm intrigued to see what Joey Aguilar looks like, just like the next person. And if he leads an offense 40-plus points in the season opener, oh, yeah, a lot of people going to be super, super high on Tennessee after not being high on Tennessee throughout the offseason. Also, go subscribe to From the Bench as well. Will does a fantastic job. Road with 22 Vols, you get to call the first 4 plays of our opening drive on Saturday. We got the ball 1st and 10 at our 30-yard line. What's your play calling and what are the results? Well, this is fun. I think play number 1, depending on the hash, I would play action roll out. Okay, I would roll Joey out to the far side of the field, and I would throw a deep flag or maybe a seam or something, or maybe a go. I would take a shot, in my opinion. Do I think they're going to do that? Probably not. Play number 1, but I would take my shot. I would run a little RPO. Play number 2, I'd probably run the football. Play number 3, non-RPO, and then play 4, I'd run a dig because Tennessee, its bread and butter was a dig for so long. That's kind of my first 4 plays. You hope that you move down the field a little bit, but obviously scoring a touchdown on one of those. I'd go 2 run, 2 pass. I would take my shot though. If not play number 1, which I would because I think it's fun, depending on the defensive look as well, I would take a shot at some point in that series. Randy Says Eric, what will this year's offense inside the red zone against conference opponents look like? Heavy run, RPO to the tight ends, or just roll Joey out and look for an open man or open running lane? Yeah, it's a good point, man. I think, rolling the quarterback out, getting the quarterback in space is something that Tennessee has not done effectively or efficiently or really at all much in the red zone. Tennessee struggled in the red zone the last couple of years. I think a strength for Joey Aguilar is getting him on the move. And so I would roll them out. I would shrink the field a little bit. If something's open, throw it. If not, just take off. I think that should be using the quarterback's legs. That's allowing an extra lead blocker, essentially, when you're down there because, a defender now has to count the quarterback in the run game. And so I would use the quarterback's legs down in the red zone, in my opinion. But I think they'll run a little bit of everything. They've run some RPOs. They've run some skinny slants. I don't think it's going to be just the run game, but whatever they do, man, they need it to be effective because Tennessee's not had a whole lot of success in the run game. But something I would do in the red zone, much like Tennessee did with Nico in the red zone in the Citrus Bowl, which you didn't see an awful lot of until the end of last year where I thought that they were super effective with it, is use the quarterback in the run game for sure. Kurt, who's one player who's flown under the radar in camp that you wouldn't be shocked to see have a huge impact against Syracuse? I mean, I cover the team, so I think Jesse Perry's pretty well documented. I mean, he's going to start, as of Tuesday, he's going to be your starting right guard. But I think he's been pretty well documented. I think Idris Farouk is a guy that's been pretty well documented. He's probably going to be one of the starters at safety. Give me Caleb Beasley at safety or Jordan Burns at linebacker. I think both those guys are going to be in the rotation and play a ton of snaps. And maybe, hey, one of those guys goes and makes plays, right? Maybe it's Jordan Burns on a blitz. Maybe it's Caleb Beasley with a pick. I don't know. I think it'd be great to see one of those guys go out and make a play. Jared, do you think this offensive line will give up less, more, or the same amount of sacks compared to last year? If one player records multiple sacks this Saturday, who's the one you're going with? How many interceptions do you see our defense having this Saturday? All right. For the offensive line, this is interesting because last year's offensive line, when healthy, was good. They just were never healthy. It was a group of veteran offensive linemen that played a whole lot of football, though at the tackle spot specifically, I mean, Lance Herb played hurt and was out of shape at the beginning of the year. Campbell on the other side was hurt pretty much all season long. I think Javonte Spraggins was hurt in the interior. I think eventually this offensive line is going to be better. So I'll go with less sacks than last year, but again, I think it's going to be a work in progress. I think this offensive line as a unit will be much better in the month of October than it was in the month of September. If one player records multiple sacks this Saturday, who's that one player going with? I don't want to go with the obvious Joshua Josephs. Give me a Caleb Herring. Jane Spears broke out in that Virginia game as the second Leo, so give me Caleb Herring as the second Leo to break out in this one. How many interceptions do you see our defense having this Saturday? Give me two. Give me two takeaways. Give me both picks. And I think that's a credit to the defensive line getting after an offensive line that could be starting 5 transfers and a brand new quarterback. JT wants to know, are you ready? Oh my gosh, yes, I'm ready. I am so ready. The start of this week's been so much fun. I love game weeks. We only get a couple throughout the season, a couple throughout the year. Man, I love game weeks. And so Monday was fun. Monday was a blast. It was a busy day, but it was a blast because we're officially in game week. So am I ready? Hell yeah, I'm ready, JT. Rocky Top Tom, can you speed up time and make it 12 p.m. Saturday already? Go Vols. I would love a time machine as well. I'd also love to go back in time and change some results of the past, right? Last question I'll highlight here on this mailbag edition of the show. Let's go to Brian. He's got a couple of things here. Brian, I think 3 rivalry games have to be Vanderbilt, Kentucky, and Bama. In-state and border rivalries over 100 years. It's Kentucky's biggest rivalry, and it's Vanderbilt. I would hate to lose Florida. That's been a litmus test for us for so long. Also means we need to win the next 2 to go out on a 4 of 5 win streak. Game week, yes, sir. Yeah, again, I don't disagree with any of that. I would like for it to be Florida because the Florida's been kind of that big game, that litmus test, as you call it, in the month of September, pretty much my entire life. Now, in the grand scheme of things, it's not been. Tennessee's played Auburn many more times, Georgia many more times, of course, Vanderbilt and Kentucky. But really, since prior to 1992, Tennessee and Florida were not rivals at all. But yeah, I like keeping Florida. I don't think that's going to happen. I would love for it to be Kentucky as well because, as we pointed out in the shows, after the announcement, The oldest rivalry for Tennessee is actually Kentucky, but Tennessee's played Vanderbilt one more time than Kentucky. They've both played them over 100 years. Both those rivalries date back to the 1800s. Pretty crazy. One other thing for Brian, I've listened to Locked On SEC pod last week when you were not there. I was on it last week. And when you're not there, reading would help. I've listened to Locked On SEC podcast last week, and when you're not there, also talked with some Bama friends. The other schools completely believe Tennessee will be bad this year, 6 to 7 wins. They believe the outsider view of everything that was lost and don't realize how bad the 2024 offensive line and wide receiver groups were. First, I'll say this. Offensive line last year, for as battered and banged up and bruised as they were, they still ran for nearly 3,000 yards. So, I mean, that line did one thing well, and that was block for the run, and they did it at an elite level. They struggled in pass pro, for sure, and again, they were injured. Wide receiver group, you guys know my thoughts on that. I don't think Tennessee's wide receivers were very good last year. That's why, sure, there's a lot of unknowns, a lot of questions about, the Mike Matthews, the Braylon Staley's, the two freshmen, Chris Brazzell, but, last year, Brew McCoy was hurt all season pretty much, it felt like. Dante Thornton couldn't make it through a game. Squirrel White took a massive step back. Mike Matthews didn't play an awful lot. Braylon Staley didn't play at all until the playoff game. Chris Brazzell was super inconsistent. Even though there's questions and unknowns and the numbers are smaller, I think based on what you had last year, Tennessee's wide receivers have a chance to be better. I truly, truly do believe that. But yeah, I mean, I cover Tennessee. I cover Tennessee on the beat. Okay, I don't cover the SEC as a whole. I don't cover college football as a whole. So I'm not going to sit here and act like I know the roster for Texas A&M like the back of my hand, the roster for South Carolina, the roster for even Florida, teams like that. So I get the sense of from a national perspective, you just look at all the Tennessee lost, especially the timing of Nico, losing the SEC Offensive Player of the Year, losing a first-rounder, Jane Spears. I get it. I understand it. I get it. But you're exactly right. I mean, we're here on the ground floor. We know this team better than anybody, and this team is, from a roster health standpoint, super, super talented. Sure, there's questions and there are unknowns, but these are being filled by players that Josh Heupel brought in that were big recruiting wins. Time to let them go cook. Let them go play. And a lot of that starts this Saturday to begin the 2025 season. All right, when we come back, we'll take a look at the ESPN matchup predictor. The computers still loving the Tennessee Volunteers in a big, big way. What are the percentages, chance of victory or loss for Tennessee in each game this season? We'll tell you when we return right here on a Tuesday, Locked On Vols. Guys, you've probably heard of Viagra or maybe Cialis. Heck, you might have even tried some of them. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rugiet Ready. Rugiet Ready is a next-gen prescription drug or prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boost blood flow. Unlike the usual pills that can take hours, Rugiet's 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue and kicks in fast on average in 15 minutes. Effects can last up to 36 hours, so you can stay confident and in control when the moment is right. Head on over to Rugiet.com/LockedOnCollege and use that promo code LockedOnCollege to get 15% off today. That is Rugiet.com, Rugiet.com/LockedOnCollege, and put in that promo code LockedOnCollege for 15% off. Individual results may vary with prescription treatment. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but not FDA approved, and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, or manufacturing review. Please visit Rugiet website for full safety information. Go check it out today, Rugiet.com. All right, guys, welcome back into your Tuesday morning Locked On Vols. Every dayers, appreciate you guys for sending in those questions, those comments, those concerns. You can continue to do that this week. Man, it's game week. Everybody's pumped up, fired up, ready to roll. Tennessee will head down to Atlanta to take on Syracuse, and the SEC opener of that game will be at noon, televised on ABC. Tennessee and Syracuse from Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Looking forward to that. All right, ESPN Analytics, the ESPN matchup predictor that you have on that app on your phone. They have Tennessee going 9-3 this season. Another example of how the computers are super high on Tennessee, whereas the voters are not. The coaches view Tennessee about where I thought they'd be, about 18 or so. The AP voters have Tennessee at number 24 entering the season. A lot of people think Tennessee's going 8-4. Some people think Tennessee might go 9-3. But again, there's been a consensus over the offseason, especially with the quarterback shakeup and all that Tennessee, the computers are higher on Tennessee than that of the people, the actual voters. ESPN matchup predictor has Tennessee going 9-3. The only losses that the matchup predictor predicts is a home loss to Georgia, giving Georgia a 59.3% chance to beat Tennessee, and then on the road at Alabama, which is, trying to find that game. Alabama has a 68.4% chance to beat Tennessee, and then on the road at Florida, where really it's a toss-up. Florida having a 51.5% chance to beat Tennessee. So I found that kind of interesting. That's about what I expected, right? If you're wondering, outside of the gimme games, the buy games, so let's discount ETSU, let's discount UAB, and let's discount New Mexico State, where, in case you're wondering, Tennessee's given a 99% chance to beat New Mexico State, Tennessee's given a 98.1% chance to beat UAB, and Tennessee's giving a 99% chance to beat TSU. The game that Tennessee is favored to win by the most, it's right at the top, man. It's right at the top. It's Tennessee versus Syracuse. Tennessee is given an 88.6% chance of winning against Syracuse on a neutral site. And I think that's a lot to do with the conversation we had with the Locked On crossover yesterday with Locked On Syracuse, the conversation I had in segment number 1, just replacing all that talent that was super, super good for Syracuse last year. A team that outscored everybody but didn't have a defense, and I still don't believe, at least on paper, has a defense entering this season. Tennessee and Syracuse, of course, that's going to be in the Act Flat kickoff game, Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta. Tennessee's 3-0 all-time against Syracuse, beating the Orange 18-12 in the Gator Bowl all the way back in 1966. Hello, we're going to talk about that on Throwback Thursday this week with Neal and Pretzcore. Winning 34-33 at Syracuse to begin the magical 98 season. Seen a lot of highlight clips from NPC this week on that. And then 33-9 in Knoxville back in 2001. Tennessee is given an 88.6% chance of victory over Syracuse on a neutral site, according to the ESPN matchup predictor. In case you're wondering, Georgia, 59.3% chance. Again, that's what we mentioned earlier. The Vols and Bulldogs play in November the last 4 years, in October in 2019 and 2020. Georgia has won 8 straight in the series, dating back to 2016, or I guess 2016 was the last Tennessee win, when Josh Dobbs, Juwan Jennings Hail Mary to win it between the hedges there again in Georgia in 2016. That's the last time Tennessee has sniffed a win in this series. So could it be this year? Could it be early in the season when Georgia's trying to figure some things out, when Tennessee has been so good at home? Quite the SEC opener, right? Welcome the Bulldogs to town. That's coming up on September, whatever that date is. This week number 3 of the season. ESPN matchup predictor gives Tennessee an 80.3% chance to beat Mississippi State. And this one's kind of one that's been circled on the calendar for a lot of people. And I understand it. If you want to factor in a slip-up game, Tennessee slipped up on the road last year against Arkansas, a win for the Hogs that likely saves Sam Pittman's job for another year. I just don't see that happening here. Mississippi State is a bad football team with a historically horrendous defense a season ago. Now, what's that defense look like this year? Again, we don't know yet. Now, they will be much better with Blake Shapen a quarterback if he can stay healthy. I think Jeff Levy's a good offensive mind. I just think from a roster standpoint, Tennessee should have its way with Mississippi State. The Vols beat Mississippi State 33-14 in Neyland Stadium last November. Again, that was Gaston Moore taking over the reins in the second half. The first meeting between the two teams since 2019. Tennessee hasn't played in Starkville since losing 41-31 in 2012 and hasn't won on the road at Davis Wade Stadium since 2007 when Tennessee won 33-21. ESPN matchup predictor gives Tennessee a 76.6% chance to beat Arkansas at home. The ESPN matchup predictor gives Tennessee a 74.8% chance to beat Kentucky on the road. And that one's kind of interesting. Zach Calzada named QB1 for Kentucky. Not unexpected. 7th-year quarterback. Played at A&M. He's played at LSU and played at Incarnate Word here most recently. Not a very good quarterback, but a quarterback that's got a ton of experience in the SEC. And Kentucky, in 3 of the 4 games against Josh Heupel the last 4 years, it's been very competitive. That 2022 game, Tennessee just had its way with Kentucky. But these Kentucky games have been very, very competitive. This one's going to be on the road, probably at night because it always is at Kroger Field. But ESPN matchup predictor gives Tennessee 74.8% chance to beat Kentucky. This one's really interesting. I've been hyping up the Tennessee-Oklahoma game November the 1st for quite some time. ESPN loves Tennessee in this one. 73.7% chance of victory. We'll see what Oklahoma looks like in November. We'll see what Tennessee looks like in November. But on paper, and again, Oklahoma, one of its biggest downfalls last year was just simply nobody was healthy, and they gave up on Jackson Arnold too quickly, in my opinion. Not saying Jackson Arnold's good. I'm not saying that he's not a bust, the former 5-star, but I think that they were premature in giving up on him. 73.7% chance to beat Oklahoma. I think Oklahoma is going to be a much improved football team. I think it's got a brutal schedule, but I think it's going to be a much improved football team. I was kind of surprised that percentage was so high when I saw this posted. And then finally, again, outside of those gimme games, I guess we got two more. We'll talk about Florida. I've already given the percent chance, but first time Tennessee's played in the month of November against Florida, I want to say since like 1950 something. They played in December back in 2001, but Tennessee and Florida playing in November, the end of November, hadn't happened much. I think it's going to be interesting. What's the health and status of DJ Lagway? How has Florida evolved? Tennessee has lost that game in Gainesville any way you can possibly imagine over the course of the last 20 years. If Tennessee can steal a game on the road between Alabama and Florida, I think it's Alabama. I feel better about Alabama. But again, this is a long way away, so I'll be intrigued to see kind of what this looks like. But according to the ESPN matchup predictor, this is pretty much coin flip, right? Tennessee are giving Florida a 51.5% chance as it stands right now. And then finally, Tennessee's given an 85.2% chance to beat Vanderbilt at home to conclude the regular season. The Vols looking for a 7th straight win in the annual in-state rivalry that dates back to 1892. Tennessee absolutely neutralized, quarterback Diego Pavia last year, and he was a non-factor. Now, Vanderbilt got off the bus with a 14-point lead. And give Tennessee credit for holding in there, coming back, making some plays. Hopefully it doesn't start off that way this year. But ESPN metrics really love Tennessee against Vanderbilt here in the preseason. 85.2% chance of victory. So, again, computers love Tennessee much more than people here in the preseason. The computers absolutely liking Tennessee, at least to be a 9-3 record for the most part. That is almost unanimous anywhere you kind of look. All right, that is going to do it here for this edition of Locked On Vols. Appreciate you guys for being here. Got a busy week coming up, continuing to prep for Tennessee and Syracuse coming up in the season opener on Saturday. Josh Ward going to join the show tomorrow. Throwback Thursday. Noah Taylor, Neyland Press Corps on Thursday. We've got Boogie Bentley on Friday. We're going to work to try to get another Syracuse voice, another Syracuse writer to come on the show as well. So exciting times. Opening week is here. Week 1, game week. What's Tennessee going to look like? Man, only a few more sleeps until we're going to find out noon on Saturday in Atlanta, Georgia. All right, that's going to do it here for a Tuesday Locked On Vols. Can't thank you enough for being here. Tell your friends, tell your family members. This is the Tennessee podcast for them. Monday through Friday, weekday mornings when you wake up. I'll have a postcast on Saturday night as well. This is Locked On Vols.